Dear readers, we are pleased to present to you the book by the internal predictor of the USSR, State Symbols and State Sovereignty. It is a misconception to think that the global system of state flags evolved spontaneously. Imagine how many people involved in the creation and adoption of various state flags would be genuinely surprised to discover that the thoughts and ideas they believed to be their own, and that led them to raise a particular flag over their country, were, in fact, subtly implanted into their consciousness according to the scheme to manage leaders. This book delves into the origins and development of the global hierarchy of states, exploring how this hierarchy is reflected in state flags and other state symbols. You can purchase the book on ozon.ru, with links available in the description of this video and on our social media platforms. Good afternoon, Valeriy Viktorovich.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, dear viewers, audio listeners, and comrades in the studio. Today is January 6th, 2025. We'll start today's program with a brief announcement. As you may know, YouTube is currently effectively blocked in Russia. Despite this, we continue to publish our videos on that video hosting. Due to YouTube's blocking in Russia, we would like to draw your attention to the video hosting service Platforma. This video hosting functions similarly to YouTube. Additionally, we publish all our question-answer programs on our website FCT-Altai with a link to Platforma. You can find the link in the description of this video along with our other official channels. There is also a QR code in the upper right corner of this video that links to Platforma. Our channel is verified on this video hosting, so please subscribe. Here you can find all our videos since the launch of Platforma in July last year. In the comments, we kindly ask you to let us know from which countries you can access our videos on Platforma. Well, now let's move on to the questions. Today we have one broad, all-encompassing question. Valeriy Viktorovich, how did 2024 conclude? And what are the world and Russia bringing into the new 2025? The year marking the 80th anniversary of the Great Victory in the Great Patriotic War.
2024 год характеризуется тем, что до крайности обострились все противоречия в мире.
In 2024, the world's contradictions reached a peak in global politics, in international politics, and in the domestic politics of individual countries.
Дело в том, что мы живем на планете за счет развития информационных.
We all live on the same planet, and with the advancement of information and communication technologies, the world has become truly global. Events in one part of the planet immediately resonate in other parts of the planet. Some argue that we live in a world of global division of labor. However, we actually live in a world of global unification of labor. Before any production process can be divided into separate functions, separate operations, and distributed across countries and continents, these regions must be united under a single governance. This unity allows for the safe relocation of production to other countries without maintaining it domestically. The collapse of the Soviet Union is a clear example of this. The Soviet Union possessed absolute stability, absolute sovereignty, producing everything internally, including civilian aircraft.
Но как только нас объединили, вписали в
However,
западноцентрическую
once Russia was united
мировоззрение,
with and integrated into the Western-centric world order, many industries, including aircraft manufacturing, were forced to shut down.
и как только против нас были
Consequently,
объявлены
when
санкции,
sanctions were imposed on us, it became evident that we couldn't procure essential goods
но при
and were
этом,
heavily
посмотрите,
dependent on others.
наша зависимость выражается в том, что мы до сих пор поставляем
This dependency
различного
is
рода
further
ресурсы
emphasized by the
западным
fact that we
странам,
continue to supply
которые
resources
ведут
to Western
войну
countries
на
actively
полное
waging war
наше
to destroy us.
уничтожение. А это означает, что мы сейчас не обладаем полнотой суверенитета.
This situation indicates that we do not currently possess full sovereignty or complete independence as a state.
Но в принципе это и выражается в том флаге, который
In essence, this lack of sovereignty is symbolized by the flag that now flies over our country as its state flag. Flags are not changed arbitrarily.
И это в наступившем 2025 году должно быть кристально ясно для всех.
By 2025, it should be crystal clear to everyone that a state's flag is not simply a randomly chosen design reflecting personal preferences.
Нет, любой флаг государства объясняет положение того или иного государства в глобальной
A state's flag
иерархии
symbolizes its
государств.
place in the global hierarchy of
Его
states and its
функциональность.
functionality.
Почему же это обстоятельство по отношению к России является очень знаковым?
Why is this aspect so crucial and significant for Russia in 2025?
В 2025 году, как вы правильно отметили, состоится 80-летие, наступает 80-я годовщина.
In 2025, as you rightly noted, we will commemorate the 80th anniversary of the great victory in the Great Patriotic War, the war our people fought to secure their right to live on this land. This sentiment is still echoed by the go-suitor of Russia in his words. Why do we need a world in which there is no Russia?
Так вот, война, которая началась с агрессии Объединенного Запада 22 июня 1940
The war, which began with the aggression of the United West on June 22, 1941, was aimed at the complete destruction of Russia, seeking to erase its existence.
И Россия, СССР в то время отстояла право
Russia, the USSR at that time, defended not only the people's right to live on this planet, but also their right to live in an exclusively independent and absolutely sovereign state.
флаг СССР как раз и выражает
The flag of the USSR
абсолютную
symbolizes this absolute independence and sovereignty.
Выбранные символы не
The symbols
носят
chosen for the
никакой
flag do not carry
политической
any
или
narrow,
идеологической
party-specific
мотивации,
ideological
хотят
agenda,
представить
as the
врага,
enemies of Russia who
которые
oppose this
выступают
flag would
против
like to
этого
suggest.
флага. Они используют символы первого ряда,
Instead, the flag of the
самые
USSR
древние,
incorporates
и
ancient
которые
symbols of the
выражают
highest order, expressing the state's
исключительный
exclusive
суверенитет
sovereignty.
государства. В 91 году флаг, как только было изменено государственное управление, флаг России, СССР, флаг субъектного, абсолютно суверенного государства
In 1991,
был
as soon as the state
заменен
governance changed, the flag of the
колониальный
USSR
флаг.
Russia, the flag of an independent, absolutely sovereign state, was replaced with a colonial flag, signifying that Russia no longer possessed state independence and marking it as a raw materials supplier and a colony of the West.
Но мы это видим и сейчас по этому статусу, когда
This status is evident today as we continue to supply resources to the West, which is actively waging a war against Russia with the goal of its complete destruction. They tell us that this flag originates from Peter I. But did Russia truly begin with Peter I, and was there no state flag before him? We had the Russian red flag, as recorded in all the chronicles. Peter I did not approve of the colonial flag. He recognized that the flag commissioned by the Dutchman butler for his father, Alexei Mihailovich Romanov, called Tishushi, was not in the state's best interest. It was colonial. Peter I made efforts to prevent this flag from becoming the state flag under any circumstances. Yes, Russia was forced to accept it as a commercial flag for the merchant fleet, but nothing more. Throughout the 300 years of the Romanov dynasty, Russia had no official state flag, except for the decree of Emperor Alexander II in 1858, which declared the black-yellow-white flag as the state flag. Why am I telling you this? It may seem like I've mentioned it many times before. However, I am reminding you briefly because in 2025, we will be commemorating the 80th anniversary of our great victory in the Great Patriotic War. This victory was over absolute evil, fascism, embodied by the Third Reich.
И в связи с этим является принципиально, какой флаг будет на параде Победы.
In this regard, it is crucial which flag will be present at the Victory Parade on Red Square and who will be honoring the victory in the Great Patriotic War.
Третий рейх, под флагом которого воевали все антирусские силы, власовцы.
Will it be the Third Reich, whose flag united all anti-Russian forces, Vlasevites, and traitors to the motherland, who fought under the white-blue-red tricolor, which is now the state flag?
Или же победил русский народ, победила Россия, чьим флагом исторически.
Or will it be the Russian people, Russia, whose historical flag, especially during the Soviet Union, was the Russian red flag that emerged victorious?
Напомню, что главным стимулом для принятия.
Let me remind you that the main motivation behind the adoption of the white-blue-red tricolor by the entire Soviet nomenclatura was their desire to betray the country, turning it into a raw material supplier for the West and surrendering it to Western control, fully aligning with its concept of governance.
Издревле существует главный принцип поведения.
The Russian elite has adhered to a guiding principle of behavior since ancient times, as expressed in the story of how the Varangians were invited to rule Russia. Our land is abundant and rich, with many cities, but lacks order. Come and rule us.
Элита Российской империи.
Both the elite of the Russian Empire and the post-Stalin Soviet nomenclatura followed this principle. This is the principle that the entire Russian elite still lives by today. The wealth of Russia should belong to the West, so come and rule us.
Именно эта концепция управления проводится такими институтами, как Центральный банк России, Министерство финансов России.
This governance concept is carried out by institutions like the Central Bank of Russia, the Ministry of Finance of Russia, and various members of the Russian elite who hold positions of power in the country.
флаг принимали в условиях, когда вся элита, вся интеллигенция была пропитана статьями в огоньке, которые утверждали, вот, Гитлер-то не был врагом России.
The flag was adopted during a time when the entire elite and intelligentsia were heavily influenced by articles in Ogoniak magazine, which claimed Hitler was not Russia's enemy. Stalin was Russia's enemy. And if we hadn't won the Great Patriotic War, hadn't defended our country, we'd now be drinking Bavarian beer, living well, and driving Mercedes. Pure, stinking nonsense, I'd say. A foolish nation defeated a clever one.
В этих условиях на раз депутаты Верховного Совета,
in this environment, the deputies of the Supreme Soviet, each holding Communist Party of the Soviet Union membership cards, immediately voted in favor of the flag, claiming, Hitler himself gave it to us, and by raising this flag, we will show that we are not the enemy of the West. The West will accept us. Of course, it will accept us as a raw material supplier. But we want to be ruled. We do not want to be an independent state. This is how this flag was raised, the same flag under which the Vlasevites fought to ensure that Russia would cease to exist.
И соответственно этому появление триколора на параде Победы показывает.
Accordingly, the presence of the tricolor at the victory parade signifies who truly won that war.
Они, вынося триколор, говорят, это вы.
By carrying the tricolor, they are effectively saying, you may think you won, but the years that followed have shown that we, the Vlasevites, won. The Third Reich won. And we deprived Russia of its independence.
Вот обо всем этом у нас написана книга «Государственные символы».
We have a book titled State Symbols and State Sovereignty that provides detailed information about the flag under which the Vlasevites fought.
А то у нас любители есть. У власовцев был.
Some argue the Vlasevites had the St. Andrew's flag on their chevron. However, it is important to study this subject thoroughly to understand why the St. Andrew's flag appeared on the chevron while the white-blue-red tricolor was used at all official events. Did the Russian Liberation Army, ROA, only hold a few parades or conferences? Was the St. Andrew's flag present at these events?
Или что, у власовцев, может быть, русская форма была? Или, может быть, все-таки...
Did the Vlasevites wear a Russian uniform? Or did they adopt a uniform based on the Third Reich style, following German rules? The answers to these questions will explain why the St. Andrew's flag is displayed on the chevron while the tricolor serves as the central flag of the political organization. More detailed information on this topic is available in State Symbols and State Sovereignty.
И в настоящее время, повторю,
At the present time, I reiterate that it is fundamentally important whether or not the tricolor will be present at the victory parade in honor of the 80th anniversary of the victory in the Great Patriotic War.
Наличие триколора на параде Победы будет означать только одно. Россия по-прежнему не является субъектным, суверенным государством.
The presence of the tricolor at the victory parade would signify only one thing, that Russia is still not an independent, sovereign state, and that it remains a raw material supplier to the West, continuing to provide resources for their war, one that the collective West is waging to completely destroy Russia. This is the only meaning behind the tricolor's presence. It should not be present at the parade as the state flag, in principle. The Vlasevites fought under the tricolor to ensure that Russia would cease to exist. But for Russia, the people fought under the truly Russian red flag. This is the significance in relation to the victory parade. The tricolor has no place in the immortal regiment. How can it possibly belong there? Should we honor the Vlasevites who fought against the Russian people, who killed the Russian people?
Вспомните тот же самый манифест
Remember the manifesto of the modern Vlasevites, in which they declare that May 9th is a day of mourning, and June 22nd is a day of celebration, when the bony hand of the dead grabbed the Russians by the throat. These are the words from their manifesto. The modern Vlasevites understand all of this perfectly well. Pay attention to the rampant propaganda surrounding the white-blue-red tricolor that saturates the entire information space. It is being inserted into every possible context to ensure that no one doubts that the flag of Russia is exclusively the white-blue-red tricolor. Consequently, this suggests that in the Great Patriotic War, Russia suffered defeat, and the Third Reich, under which the Vlasevites fought with the white-blue-red tricolor, emerged victorious. In this regard, the creation of the Ilyin Center, funded by the state, is significant. Ilyin was the one who regretted Hitler's failure for the rest of his life after the Great Patriotic War. He died in 1954 and sought to understand, why did Hitler fail to defeat Russia? He struggled with this question until 1948, when he realized the Russian people are essentially Bolshevik, which is the absolute opposite of the fascism he had advocated. What conclusion did he draw? That without changing the culture of the people, fascism could never be imposed on Russians. This means that, first and foremost, the culture of the people must be altered. Throughout the post-Soviet period, the state's entire propaganda machine has been, and continues to be, focused on changing the culture of the people to introduce fascism. The first fruits are already evident. The creation of a center named after Ilyin, where fascists, supporters of the tricolor, and proponents of placing a foreign ruler, like the overgrown Goga Hohenzollern, on Russia's neck are active. The motto remains, "Come and rule us." This is still the guiding principle of these Vlasevites. No matter how many patriotic words they utter, this remains their true agenda. During the New Year holidays, many people noticed that apparently very popular Soviet films are now being reshot and remade into what are called modern versions. What is the point of this? There is a clear program in the country aimed at eradicating all things Soviet, with the goal and culture being to eliminate Soviet cinematography entirely, ensuring that not a single Soviet film remains. This initiative is directed by the Ministry of Culture and is being carried out with government funding. Enormous sums of money are being allocated to this effort, with budgets easily approved as long as they involve remaking popular Soviet films. However, these remakes turn out to be shit. That's the entire objective, to produce shit and claim there was nothing valuable in Soviet times. We won't show you the original Soviet films. Instead, we'll offer you this. Directors are flocking to these projects. They're not making films about the special military operation for demilitarization and denazification. Instead, they seem to be thinking, tomorrow Russia might capitulate, But how will I live under a foreign master? The foreign master has instructed us to turn Soviet masterpieces into modern shit, and they're providing massive funds for this. By creating this shit, I'll earn favor with the master. Their task is to dehumanize people, turning them into animals.
На это работает и система образования, и система воспитания.
The education system, the upbringing system, and the Ministry of Culture are fully dedicated to this goal. They serve no other purpose but to brutalize society and eradicate historical memory.
Люди сопротивляются.
People are resisting, and the Russian elite is displeased with this defiance.
И в качестве своего символа, то, что у них по-прежнему остается их власть в стране, и у них задача.
In an assertion that they still wield power in the country, they have made it their mission to ensure that the tricolor's presence at the victory parade is perceived normally by the public.
Чтобы победителями считали власовцев,
They want the
которые
Vlasevites,
воевали за
who fought
Гитлера.
for Hitler, to be seen as the victors, instead of those who defended the right to life on planet Earth, saved Russia, and prevented the destruction of the Russian people.
Поэтому надо понимать, что именно в символьной форме сейчас выражается полное
Therefore,
противостояние.
it is essential to understand that the current confrontation is symbolically represented. Those who support Russia stand by the red flag, while those who oppose Russia align themselves with the white-blue-red tricolor.
Надо помнить, что во время гражданской войны только под
It must be
контролем
remembered that during the Civil War, only the forces controlled by the interventionists fought under the white-blue-red tricolor.
И Черчилль об этом прямо сказал.
Churchill
Они
stated it
сражались за то,
plainly.
чтобы
They
Россия
fought for
была
Russia to be
нашей
our
колонией.
colony.
Офицер британского флота Колчак был в командировке. Он сражался за то,
British naval officer
Россия
Kolchak was on a mission to
разделила
ensure
на
Russia was divided into territories for
колониальное
colonial
управление.
rule.
Ради
He
этого
fought for
приходили
this.
интервенции.
The interventionists invaded Russia to
Черчилль же
achieve this
прямо,
goal.
повторяю,
I repeat,
сказал, они
Churchill was
сражались за
clear.
наши
They fought
интересы,
for our
а не за
interests,
какую-то
not
там
for some
Россию.
sort of Russia.
И
Under
у Гитлера
Hitler,
сражались
they
под
fought under the
этим
same
бело-сине-красным
white-blue-red
триколором не
tricolor,
за то, чтоб
not for the
контролировать
survival of
власть, а
Russia,
за то,
but
чтобы
for a
пришел
foreign master to
иностранный
take
хозяин и
control
всем
and
владеть.
own everything.
Так вот, но даже если кто-то считает, что под бело-сине-красным триколором кто-то в гражданскую войну сражался за интересы России, то надо помнить,
But even if someone believes that
гражданская
during the Civil
война
War,
в
some
России
fought for the interests of Russia
закончилась
under the white-blue-red tricolor, we must remember that the Civil War in Russia ended on June 22, 1941.
Все, что мы сейчас видим, противостояние так называемых белых с так называемыми красными,
What we see now, the confrontation between the so-called whites and reds, is no longer a civil war.
вражеская
It is enemy
агрессия.
aggression.
А 22 июня 1941
The date of
года,
June 22,
когда уже вся
1941,
эмиграция
marked the end of
могла
the Civil War when the entire
то, что
emigration
делали
could already
большевики
see what the
для,
Bolsheviks were doing for the
России,
USSR
СССР.
Russia.
И как великий князь Александр Михайлович об этом сказал,
Grand
«Моя
Duke
душа пела,
Alexander
когда я
Mikhailovich
видел,
Romanov said about
что
this.
большевики
My soul
делают
sang when I
то,
saw
о
that the
чем
Bolsheviks
мечтал
were
мой
doing
дед,
what my
а
grandfather
это
dreamed
кто дед?
of. And who was this
Император,
grandfather?
государь-император
His Majesty
Николай
Emperor Nicholas I.
I. Так вот, все могли оценить, что делают
So,
большевики для России.
everyone
Все
could
могли
appreciate
понять,
what
что
the Bolsheviks
большевики
were doing for Russia.
именно
Everyone
представляют
understood that the
Россию
Bolsheviks
для
represented
России.
Russia.
И когда объединенная Европа напала на Советский Союз, Россию, каждый
When United
сделал
Europe
для
attacked
себя
the USSR
нравственный
Russia,
выбор.
everyone had to
С
make a
кем?
moral
С
choice.
Россией
Were they with
или
Russia or
против
against
нее?
it?
Люди случайно оказавшиеся в белом движении,
People who found
побуждены
themselves in the white
будущим
movement but were
государственникам,
true
такими
statesmen,
как Петр
such as
Сергеевич
Pyotr
Мавров,
Semyonovich
начальник
Makarov,
генерального штаба
chief of staff for
Дениkin,
Denikin, made a choice.
он
He wrote a
написал
statement to the
заявление в
Red
Красную
Army,
армию: «Прошу
"Please accept
принять
me,
меня хотя
even
бы
as a
рядовым
soldier of the
бойцом».
lowest rank."
А другие, будучи абсолютным ничтожеством,
On the other
нечестью,
hand, there were absolute
у которых
nonentities
не
and
было ни
traitors with
чести, ни
no honor,
совести, ни
conscience,
родины,
or
как,
motherland
например,
like Adam
атаман
and
Краснов.
Krasnov.
Как
As
только
soon as
рухнула
royal authority
царская
collapsed in
власть в России, он
Russia,
побежал
he
к
fled to
Евгению
Wilhelm
II в
II in
Германию. Он
Germany.
даже
He
не
didn't even
понял, что и
understand that
он
he was doomed
приговорен.
as well.
Ему лишь бы кто-то, лишь бы любому служить,
He simply wanted to
лишь бы
serve
против
anyone,
России.
as long as it was
Прими нас
against
под
Russia.
себя.
Take us under your wing.
Будем тебе
We will
служить
serve you
верой и правдой.
faithfully. The Russian
Разбили
people
его в
defeated him in the
гражданскую
Civil
войну.
War. He
Убежал,
fled, bitter
злобу
and
затаил
resentful
на
of
Россию.
Russia.
И как только Гитлер пошел войной на
And when
Россию,
Hitler went to
он
war
сразу к
against
нему
Russia,
побежал.
he immediately ran to him.
Я буду
I will
помогать
help
тебе
you kill
убивать русских.
Russians.
Я хочу,
I
чтобы
want
от России
nothing
ничего не
left of
осталось.
Russia.
Вот такие люди, а точнее не люди,
These inhuman people,
выродки,
Versi, out
прибежали
Russians,
к
who
Гитлеру,
ran to Hitler and
стали
served him,
служить ему.
revealed their true nature.
А у меня вопрос. Если мы понимаем, что
I
это
have a question.
ублюдки,
If it is
предатели
clear for
Родины,
us that
то на
these are
каком основании
bastards, traitors to the
существует
motherland,
музей,
on what
восхваляющий
basis
вот
does a
эту вот
museum exist that
конченую мразь,
glorifies such scumbags as Krasnov
Простова и
and his
его подельников,
accomplices?
которые и в гражданскую войну воевали против России,
They fought
и в
against
Великую
Russia
Отечественную
during both
войну
the Civil War and the
воевали
Great
против
Patriotic
России,
War,
творя
committing
зверства
horrific
по отношению к
crimes against
мирному
civilians.
населению. Но мы, говоря о флаге и необходимости о том, чтобы Россия наконец-то обрела
In terms of the state flag, it is necessary for Russia to finally adopt one that truly reflects its complete state independence and complete sovereignty. That is the Russian red flag. This flag was the flag of the USSR.
Потому что современная система флагов, она не подразумевает уход к тем флагам, которые были до 17
Given
века.
that the modern system of flags does not accommodate a return to pre-17th century flags, no flag in the modern system of flags better symbolizes independence and sovereignty than the flag of the USSR,
Овеянный
the flag under which
славой,
Russia achieved victory in the
победой в
Great
Великой
Patriotic
Отечественной
War.
войне. Мы должны противостоять тем, кто пытается
We must resist the
Россию
forces aiming to keep Russia as merely a raw materials supplier to the West.
что
Let me
Россия
remind you that the
пытается
Central Bank of
влиять на
Russia
Запада
is one such
Центробанк.
tool, enforcing this Western policy.
Базовый сценарий Центробанка, опубликованный на сайте Центробанка, подразумевает, что в России не должно
The basic scenario
быть
outlined on the
никакого
central bank's website
производства,
suggests that Russia should have no domestic production
которое
except what
обеспечит
serves
интересы
Western interests.
Запада. А соответственно этому не должно быть никакого внутреннего финансирования.
Under this framework,
Потому что
internal
то, что нужно
financing is to be
Западу,
eliminated, as the West will
Запад
only
всегда
fund what serves its
финансирует
interests.
Россию. А все, что Запад
Anything that does
не
not
финансирует,
align with Western interests will
Запад
not
финансировать
receive
не будет.
financing.
И, соответственно, этому не должно быть в России никаких действий,
This
которые бы
implies that
противоречили
Russia must
Западу
avoid
и
actions
позволили
detrimental
бы
to the West
населению
or those
России
allowing its
самим
population to
определять,
decide
что же им
what is
необходимо
needed for
для
the country's
развития страны.
development.
Поскольку по модели экономической, которую базовый сценарий оглашен Центробанком, у них на сайте подразумевает, что экономически оправданно в
According
этой
to the central
модели
bank scenario,
проживает
sustaining Russia's economy would require a population
только
of no
15
more than
миллионов
15
населения.
million.
Сейчас в России почти
Yet
40
today, Russia's population is around 154 to 155 million. So, the question arises,
Куда остальные?
what happens to the
И мы же
rest?
видим, как Набиуллина конкретно поставила
We've seen how Nabiullina explicitly stated that there will be no support for mortgages or programs to boost Russia's population growth, because all resources are intended for the West. Furthermore, she maintains that financing should come exclusively from the West. Consequently, interest rates in Russia are prohibitive, absolutely prohibitive.
И вот в таких вот условиях мы вышли в 2025 год. В условиях, когда вся элита мечтает о том,
And it is under these conditions that we entered 2025, a time when the entire elite dreams of reducing Russia to nothing more than a raw material supplier to the West, with no more than 15 million people remaining in the country.
чем же
How did
завершится
2024 conclude?
И мы можем наши вопросы-ответы поднять. Можно поднять СМИ, там кто в телеграм-каналах читал. У всех
Looking through
было
information
ожидание,
resources, including our question-answer programs, media outlets, and Telegram channels, all anticipated a defining event occurring on December 30th that would shape the future of the entire planet Earth.
Война, которую ведет Запад против России, завершится некими переговорами или хотя бы неким действием, которые будут вести к этим переговорам.
The war the West is waging against Russia was expected to lead to negotiations, or at least some action that could prompt negotiations, which would result in Russia's capitulation, an agreement to pay reparations, and contributions to Ukraine.
Все уверены в том, что на Западе
Everyone in the West is confident that Russia will lose. Why are they so certain?
Неоднократно про это говорили, и не будем повторяться более подробно.
We've discussed this before, so we won't go into detail about how our general staff operates or how the Russian elite behaves.
Но если наша элита всеми силами делает все, чтобы уничтожить Россию и русский народ, а она управляет процессами, то тогда...
But if our elite is actively working to destroy Russia and the Russian people while controlling key processes, then the question arises, what kind of response can the West expect from Russia, especially if Russia is governed by absolute traitors? Even some self-proclaimed patriots from Tsargrad are longing for foreign rule and domination by figures like the overgrown Goga Hohenzollern, who are eager to instill fascism in the country. The main ideologist behind this, Dugin, is advancing this agenda through the Aline Center and his broader activities, all supported by Tsargrad, a media outlet. So, why should the West doubt that there will be no response? They believe there will be no response. The entire elite is corrupt. They all dream of being our slaves. They have tried to make us follow their lead, urging us to participate in negotiations, come to the table, and finalize an agreement. Ukraine? Divided. But what was the purpose of the special military operation for demilitarization and denazification? It was to prevent NATO forces from entering Russian territory, and Ukraine is Russian territory. Now they're offering us this. NATO forces are already on Ukrainian soil, and you must accept this. Consider it a positive outcome for you. Denazification and demilitarization of Ukraine? Forget about it. In 10 years, we will arm Ukraine so heavily that it will attack you again. And when that happens, we'll finish you off because by then, the entire Russian elite will have destroyed the country's economy, creating such social tensions that the country will implode. And our entire so-called patriotic segment spoke in this manner. We cannot defeat Ukraine. For example, there is a resource called Ukraina.ru, and its representative gave an interview to Karnakov on Soloviev Live. In the interview, he said, "We cannot defeat Ukraine. We need to agree to negotiations. They will contact us, and we must accept whatever they propose." This is their idea of patriotism. Quite a display of patriotism, indeed. People need to understand that the salvation of a drowning man is ultimately in his own hands. The entire Russian elite is determined to betray Russia, to destroy it, and an information field is being formed to support this. In this context, the flag is not just a symbol, it is a specific tool for governance. It represents what the future holds.
Вот пока флаг Советского Союза не был снят с Кремля, никто
Before the
не
Soviet
мог
Union's flag was removed from the Kremlin, no one dared to bite Russia.
Но как только поняли, что внутри страны управление захватили власовцы,
But as soon as everyone realized that the Vlasevites, just like Yeltsin in the US Congress, who only prayed for one thing, God bless America, those who longed to serve the West had taken control of the country, the situation changed.
как он сказал,
What did Yeltsin say? Go ahead, rob Russia. And that's exactly what happened. Everyone rushed to take what they could from Russia. No one cared about Russia's interests anymore. Thanks to this Rus-Zion elite, we are still not taken seriously. When those who reject the country's flag and anthem are celebrated as heroes, it sends a clear message. The Russian hoi polloi are defending some Rashka. So what? Who says this? Deputy Prime Minister Chernyshenko himself. Are those who defend Russia, who lay down their lives, heroes? No, the heroes are those who betray Russia. Why? Because the people support Russia and we are against it. This statement is meaningful. It is an indicator of how intense the confrontation between Russian patriots and traitors is. The fate of the entire world is being determined on the battlefields of the special military operation for demilitarization and denazification. The West is exhausted, and its dominance is waning. With each passing day, the West faces more and more problems. Like the need for air, the West is desperate for a break in negotiations. That's why much of our Rus-Zion elite, along with many so-called patriots, are pushing for negotiations, echoing the West's desires. How can we refuse the master? He might get angry. The Houthis don't give a damn about the opinions of the United States and continue their relentless attacks. What is the United States doing in response? They are seeking agreements with the Houthis, attempting to negotiate. Your attacks on our ships are damaging our image and complicating our ability to ensure safe passage through the Suez Canal. We are helpless. Let's find a solution together, please. In return, we will consider removing you from certain sanctions lists. Wow, what a favor. However, the Houthis counter with, what benefit does this bring us? Our vital interests lie elsewhere. And the Houthis continue to strike the United States relentlessly, bringing down their drones one after another. And how does the Rus-Zion elite behave? They fear causing harm to the United States and go to great lengths to preserve its dominance, using Russia's resources to maintain the United States as the world hegemon. But what is the current global situation? Can the United States still be maintained as a hegemon? It is already obvious to the entire world that the answer is no. Even the president of Honduras is taking action. Honduras, a country that, in the past, would never have dared to challenge the might of the United States. We have a 3-volume work titled War State Bolshevism, which addresses whether every entity called a state truly qualifies as one and whether all states are equal. Comparing Honduras military to that of the United States, it's evident that a single U.S. expeditionary strike group, not even a full carrier strike group, could easily defeat Honduras once and for all. This dynamic has shaped international relations for years. Yet now, Honduras has boldly declared, if the United States does not act appropriately, we will shut down the U.S. military base in our country. There is an ongoing shift in global power dynamics, along with the collapse of the United States hegemony. Yet, our entire Russian elite remains convinced that the sun rises in Washington. They are incapable of thinking otherwise. If American dominance fades, a figure like Nabiullina would see her life's purpose as wasted, given that her sole objective is licking the ass of her American master and following his directives to destroy Russia. This servile mindset permeates the entire Russian elite. What is happening in the United States? The hopes of the Russian elite are crumbling along with the situation in the United States. They would be better off waking up to reality, but instead, they deceive themselves into believing they are winning while the facts tell a different story. They perceive Trump as a threat. Yet what did Trump face from 2016 to 2020? He was outlasted by opponents within the government, who engaged in relentless state sabotage to obstruct his governance. The idea that an orange revolution in the United States was impossible in the absence of an American embassy held true until the American national elite, in their battle against the global elite and specifically Trump, activated the very mechanisms of an orange revolution within the United States itself. Over Trump's 4 years, they destabilized the state governance system, and under Biden, the situation has only worsened further. Many of the pro-American lackey elites were also fearful of Trump's recent victory. However, they quickly changed their tune when their masters instructed them to do so. Look at how our Russian elite, and especially the Western elite, joined in publicly insulting Trump. What are they showcasing with their behavior? Master, we were afraid of Trump, but we are completely devoted to you. See how we attack Trump. They believe this demonstrates strength.
20 января состоится инаугурация президента Трампа. И инаугурация пройдет при приспущенных флагах.
Here's a concrete example. On January 20th, President Trump will be inaugurated, and the ceremony will take place with flags at half-mast in honor of former President Carter, who passed away on December 30th. According to tradition, flags are to remain at half-mast for 30 days, a period that coincidentally includes Inauguration Day. Trump proposes, let's raise the flags at least on Inauguration Day, as it is a significant occasion, and then we can resume the mourning period. The response was no. Why? Because when Trump was elected, they began stirring public emotions, framing his election as a catastrophe for the United States and suggesting that a period of mourning was imminent. Now, with his inauguration, they imply that this time of mourning has officially arrived.
Посылают Трампу множество сигналов. Например, прошедшие 3 теракта по-крупному. Это наезд и перестрелка, наезд на толпу и перестрелка с полицией в Новом.
The American national elites are sending clear signals to Trump, largely manifesting in events such as the recent series of terrorist attacks. The deliberate car running into a crowd and a shootout with police in New Orleans, the explosion of a Tesla Cybertruck near the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, and the shooting of 11 people at a nightclub in Queens, New York.
Они произошли один за другим. И
These incidents occurred one after the other and, in essence, are interconnected in very strange ways. Unfortunately, it's too early to definitively attribute these terrorist attacks to any specific individuals due to a severe lack of information. What we do know is that New Orleans and Las Vegas share a connection. Individuals involved in both locations served in the same Army unit, among other links.
Но есть одно но. Из информации, опубликованной самим же Теслой,
But here's the thing. According to information released by Tesla Corporation, the Cybertruck can be operated in automatic mode, meaning a driver isn't necessarily needed.
Соответственно этому Cybertruck
This raises the possibility that the Cybertruck could have autonomously driven itself to the Trump Hotel.
Почему я про это обстоятельство говорю? А потому что нам говорят о том, что
Why is this circumstance important? We are told that just moments before the car exploded, the driver shot himself.
Ну бывает.
Well, things happen, the driver shot himself.
Ну там
Shortly after, an explosion and fire ensued.
все обгорело очень и очень сильно. Там металл оплавил.
The destruction was intense, with the vehicle's metal melting, yet the paper documents and pass, sealed in plastic, were only slightly singed.
Это вот как найденные документы.
It's reminiscent of the documents found after the 2001 terrorist attacks on the Twin Towers, where the terrorist passports were reportedly discovered intact amidst the wreckage, alongside a Quran.
Вот все сгорело, металлические
Despite the
комponенты
metal
всё
structures
оплавило.
melting,
А вот
the documents remained miraculously unscathed.
и мы видим точно такую же ситуацию. И
A similar situation is evident in the Las Vegas terrorist attack. There are many peculiarities surrounding other terrorist attacks, but that's not the main focus right now. Everything will come to light in due time.
Важно то, что и Трампу, и Маску
What matters is that a clear message was sent to both Trump and Musk.
открывается
A Tesla, Musk's flagship project,
у отеля
exploded
Трамп.
near the Trump Hotel.
Показаны связи этого террориста с другими террористами, совершившими другие теракты. Показано определенное
Connections between this terrorist and those involved in other attacks are being uncovered, revealing a clear consequence. If you persist, you will be destroyed. The possibility that Trump may not survive to see his inauguration is deeply concerning, and it will take a tremendous effort to ensure that he reaches that moment. The question of who might be orchestrating a potential terrorist attack and assassination against him remains.
Но главное это в другом. Вот многие увидели в том, что
The main
американские
thing is
правые
another.
элиты
Many perceive such potential attacks as a demonstration of power by the American national elites.
и наша россионская элита, и
Both our
западная,
Russian elite
да,
and the Western
мы
elite show off.
с этим
Look at
можем
us.
как угодно
We can do
делать.
anything to Trump now.
Вон они
See how
какие
strong we are?
сильные. А ведь весь вопрос-то заключается в том, что устранение Трампа
However, removing Trump would undoubtedly trigger a civil war and lead to the complete collapse of the United States.
полностью. Вот эти процессы разбалансировки,
These imbalance processes are unfolding globally.
и то, что мы на новогодние праздники видели в Южной Корее, это как раз показатель о том, что
What occurred in South Korea during the New Year holidays clearly indicates that not all states are truly states, and that the governance of global processes is beginning to falter.
Вот если мы возьмем Южную Корею, то мы увидим,
If we examine South Korea, we see a history where all presidents have ended up very badly. Indeed, it is a suicide mission.
возникает вопрос. А
This raises the
дальше
question, how has state governance been sustained in the country all this time?
Вот когда выписали, отправили этот, кто он, президент Кореи, этот, Ёль-то как же его. Так вот, совершил...
When President Yoon Suk-yeol attempted a coup d'etat and was subsequently dismissed, an arrest warrant was issued against him.
Пришли его арестовывать.
However, During the attempt to detain him, his guards intervened. North Korea remarked on the situation, stating, "This marks the collapse of national governance in South Korea." While this observation is correct, it is more accurate to describe it as the collapse of supranational governance. South Korea, as evidenced by the tumultuous fates of its presidents, has never truly been governed at a national level. Even the country's flag symbolizes this reality.
Суть Южной Кореи заключается в следующем. В Северной Корее формируется человек.
The essence of South Korea, in contrast to North Korea, where people are shaped according to strict ideological parameters, lies in South Korea's formation as a production cluster.
А чтобы население Южной Кореи не представляло какой-либо угрозе будущему объединению единой
To mitigate
Кореи,
any potential threat to the future unification of Korea, South Korea has the world's lowest birth rate, resulting in a declining population.
фактически произойдет
This situation will ultimately lead to South Korea being absorbed by North Korea, enabling the latter to own the industrial and scientific potential that was once relocated from the United States to South Korea.
Были созданы и автомобильное производство, и компьютерная электроника была создана, и судостроение было создано.
Key industries such as automobile production, computer electronics, and shipbuilding, which have thrived in South Korea, will be integrated into North Korea's economy. North Korea's economy, however, is severely imbalanced, as its military-industrial complex remains the most developed sector. Nevertheless, North Korea cannot exist without supranational governance and external resources. This should be clear.
Так вот, в Южной Корее вот эти процессы неустойчивости, они как раз и показывают то, что сейчас...
The instability processes in South Korea demonstrate that currently, in the United States, no one is concerned with how domestic affairs are managed elsewhere in the world. They are all at loggerheads internally, lacking the resources to govern specific regions of the planet. Accordingly, they do not have sufficient resources for Russia. However, they demonstrate that they have achieved the so-called victory in Russia. By breaking Russia, as was done in 1991 with the Soviet Union, the United States would gain resources that could help them maintain their position in the world. But in Russia, they cannot defeat the state, nor can they defeat the sovereign people. The Russian elites are entirely corrupt, yet they cannot overcome the people.
И поэтому, чтобы переориентировать народ, и введена новая программа.
Therefore, to reorient the U.S. population, a new program has been proposed. Let's annex Canada and Greenland to the United States, take the Panama Canal, and then we will live in luxury. We will receive resources, and we will have everything we need.
Встает вопрос для американской страновой элиты. Противостояние с Россией с неизвестным концом.
The American national elite is facing a dilemma. Should they confront Russia with an uncertain outcome, as the Russian elite has already shown it does not govern all processes, and at the very least, Orshnik could strike the United States and inflict unacceptable damage? Or should they prioritize acquiring resource-rich territories, setting Russia aside for now, with the belief that we can deal with Russia later? What plans is the American national elite beginning to devise? While they consider these plans nearly unrealistic, they are contemplating the acquisition of new territories. For example, in Canada, some businessmen have suddenly begun discussing how it would be nice to join the United States. Meanwhile, Greenland, with a population of just 56,000, has declared, "We will now fully separate from Denmark, Denmark will no longer have any authority over us. We will act independently. If we choose, we may establish contact with the United States, and perhaps even join the United States as a separate state. Actually, Соединенные Штаты Америки is not the correct translation. In Russian, it should be Соединенные Государства Америки. The reason Brazil did not adopt a flag similar to the United States Star-Spangled Banner is that the United States had already expanded across the continent. Originally, the United States was referred to as the North American United States of America, while Brazil was envisioned as the South American United States of America. However, because Brazil lagged in its state development as a center of governance concentration, while the North American United States of America advanced rapidly, technological progress enabled the latter to assert dominance over the Western Hemisphere, leading to the birth of the Monroe Doctrine. Following the Monroe Doctrine, Соединенные Государства Америки began intervening in Europe as a global gendarme, and the two world wars further entrenched the United States in this dominant role. This aligns perfectly with the logic of behavior and the logic of thinking of both the American establishment and the general American population. I repeat, they are facing challenges with Russia because they cannot dismantle it as they did in 1991. A catastrophe in the United States is inevitable. Therefore, while they have an opportunity to shift focus and acquire valuable resources, they must temporarily step back from Russia. This decision means abandoning the pro-American, treacherous Vlasov elite in Russia. The Vlasov elite in Russia had better realize that they are being abandoned, with no favorable outcome in sight. In conclusion, 2024 is the year when all global processes, all international processes, and all domestic processes in states around the world have reached a critical juncture.
Глобальное объединение труда состоялось, и, соответственно, этому ни один процесс.
This is due to the finalization of the global unification of labor, which has made it increasingly difficult for any process worldwide to unfold smoothly for all parties involved.
И в этом отношении кризис Соединенных Штатов и становление России как центра концентрации общемирового уровня значимости, как центр концентрации.
In this regard, both the crisis in the United States and the rise of Russia as a center of universal governance emerge as the only viable solution for the survival of civilizations on planet Earth.
И именно поэтому такой успех у объединений БРИКС.
This explains the growing strength of organizations like BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, the increasing alignment of African countries with Russia, and the gradual distancing of other countries, such as those in Latin America, from the United States in favor of closer ties with Russia. Therefore, the future belongs to Russia.
Но а ближайшей задачей у нас должно стать пусть не государственный флаг.
As for our immediate task, even if changing the state flag may not yet be feasible due to the state of the Russian elite, who unfortunately are largely traitors, we must ensure that only the Russian red flag is present at the victory parade. The Vlasov tricolor must be excluded. This will serve as a clear symbol of Russia's emergence as an independent and absolutely sovereign state. This is the situation.
Those were all the questions for today.
Well, all that's left for me is to say goodbye and remind you that many things are incomprehensible to us, not because our minds are weak, but because these things are not in the circle of our concepts. In the past, being a productive member of society required only basic literacy and numeracy. But today it's crucial to grasp the intricacies of governing complex social supersystems. This vital knowledge can be found in only one source, the writings of the internal predictor of the USSR. In preparation for the current intense and bloody maneuver in global governance, we have written a 3-volume work titled War State Bolshevism. The first volume, State, examines the very concept of a state, questioning whether all states meet the definition of a state. The second volume, War, explores the methods of warfare, defining it as a complex set of measures aimed at capturing others' energy, natural, and human resources, in that specific order. Amid the ongoing global turmoil, where can a solution be found? Historically, the solution lies in Russian Bolshevism, which is the central focus of the third volume, Bolshevism. In addition to this 3-volume set, we have also prepared another work that directly addresses the question of what a state truly is, the book State Symbols and State Sovereignty. Just as a soldier's insignia reveals his branch of service, rank, position, and capabilities, state symbols, particularly flags, serve as a quick indicator of where a state stands within the global hierarchy of states. Our partners have prepared and published an additional edition to complement these books, a collection of analytical notes titled Fleet is Being, part of the series about the world of crooked mirrors. The reasoning behind this title is explained in detail within the book or on our Telegram channel and V-Contact group. This book can also stand alone, as it contains independent analytical notes. For instance, there are notes about the central bank that are particularly relevant at the moment. These notes provide insights into why certain developments are occurring within the central bank and why Putin approaches these matters with such caution, avoiding shooting from the hip. Another work that our partners have prepared to complement the 3-volume series, War State Bolshevism, is an additional volume to the first and second editions. While we are currently preparing the third edition of the series, its publication date remains unknown. This additional volume includes materials that will be incorporated into the third edition. Moreover, it can be used as a standalone work, as it is highly relevant to present circumstances. It delves into crucial topics, such as the ideal structure of the army and economy, the process by which sovereignty was surrendered, and the functioning of the global colonial system. In essence, it addresses all the current methodological questions in one way or another. Our partners published the series Library of Conceptual Knowledge. The first volume in the series, on economy, explores the nature of the economy, how it functions, and how to critically evaluate the various ideas presented by economists. The second volume, on imitative and provocative activity, is particularly timely, as it examines how public opinion leaders can suddenly reveal themselves to be different from their claimed personas. For instance, those who profess to be patriots but turned out to be Vlasevites. The third volume, Sufficiently General Theory of Governance, serves as the foundation of the conception of public safety. The next volume, Ida Pushkin, delves into the conceptual underpinnings of Pushkin's works. Following this is Matrix is Different from Matrix, a study of matrix governance, a theme that Pushkin also subtly addressed in his writings.
наши партнеры издали сборник статей, книгу, переиздали книгу 1923 года.
Additionally, our partners have reissued a significant book from 1923 titled World Fascism. This collection of analytical articles, published during the early rise of fascism in Europe, remains both informative and relevant in today's context. Read these and other books by the internal predictor.
Занимаясь своей обыденной деятельностью по защите интересов своей и своей семьи, сможете
As you go about your daily work to protect your interests and those of your family, you will gain the ability to influence national and global processes in a way that aligns with the profound interests of the entire population, as well as your own. This will help ensure the stability of the state, peace, and a bright future for your children. All that's left for me to do is say goodbye and wish you a peaceful sky above your head. Wishing you happiness. I'll see you next time.